Okay, so let us begin with prayers. Om Ajnanatimidandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupah Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagarjatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschat Deshatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauratvishe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. Thank you all for joining. We are meeting after I think 3-4 weeks now, and in this time of Corona, which has affected all the entire world, I hope all of you are doing safe and at your respective places, and hope everybody is healthy, happy, and holy. The three words which I like a lot. So healthy means disease-free body. Our body has to be disease-free. Happy means disease-free mind. Our mind has to be disease-free. And holy means disease-free soul. We have to purify our heart. We have to get rid of the 6 anarthas to actually become really, really holy. So I hope on a daily basis, those of you who have got some extra time in this Corona lockdown situation, and even those who have not got any extra time, I hope on a daily basis, our sadhana is all going on well, and we all are endeavoring to become better and better sadhakas, to become better and better devotees with every passing day. So with this small prayer and with this request, I would like to begin this session. So as I had said over the WhatsApp, that I'll be talking on a theme of the unique position of Srimad Bhagavatam. Somehow, I recently heard a lecture of His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu on similar topic, and over the past 1 or 2 months, I have been hearing some glories of Bhagavatam and things like that, to revive my lost love for Bhagavatam in one sense. So since I was hearing about that, I thought it will be best to share that with all of you as well. So with this, let us begin. So this shloka comes in the very end of Srimad Bhagavatam. So as we all know, Srimad Bhagavatam has 18,000 shlokas, 18,000 verses, divided into 12 cantos. So towards the end, the 12th canto, 13th chapter, 16th and 17th shloka says, Nimnaganam yatha ganga devanam achyuto yatha vaishnavanam yatha shambhu purananam idam tatha kshetranam chaiva sarvesham yatha kashkashihi anuttama tatha purana virvratanam Srimad Bhagavatam dvicha. So here, so basically in this, now Suta Goswami is basically winding up. So as we all know, Srimad Bhagavatam begins by these Shaunakadi rishis assembled, and they are trying to inquire from Suta Goswami. And now towards this end, Suta Goswami is kind of wrapping up, by summarizing the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam. That is what is the title of this chapter as well. And he is mentioning these very wonderful verses. These are like 4th last or 5th last verses. If I'm not wrong, like the verses are till 20 or something. And this is like 16th verse, right? So it says Nimna Ganam Yatha Ganga. Nimna Ganam means rivers, all those which flow downwards towards the ocean, rivers. Among all the rivers, so let's read the translation. Just as the Ganga is the greatest of all rivers, Nimna Ganam Yatha Ganga, Devanam Achyuto Yatha, and just like among all the Devtas, among all the gods and everybody else, Lord Achyuta, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, is the Supreme. Vaishnavanam Yatha Shambhu, and just like among all the Vaishnavas, Lord Shiva is the Supreme. Similarly, Purananam Idam Tatha. Similarly, among all the Puranas, Srimad Bhagavatam is the Supreme. Srimad Bhagavatam is the greatest. So, Uddhav Prabhu, just one more last time, can you just confirm if everything is fine so that I'll just go ahead with the flow now? Okay.
Yes, Prabhuji, everything is crystal clear.
Yes, and I request everybody to be on mute, and then towards the end, we will be unmuting one by one, and we'll be having some interactions and question answers and things like that. Okay. So, as we saw, so just as Ganga is greatest of all rivers, Lord Krishna is the best of all gods, Shivji is the best of all Vaishnavas, similarly Srimad Bhagavatam is the best of all Puranas. And then the very next sloka says, Kshetranam Chaiva Sarvesham, and among all the Kshetras, among all the holy places, Yatha Kashi Anuttama, just like Kashi is the topmost of all the holy places, Tatha Purana Vratanam Srimad Bhagavatam Dvija. Similarly, Srimad Bhagavatam is the supreme among all the Puranas. He is telling to all the assembled Brahmanas like that. So here we see, if you remember, even in the beginning, 1.1.1 is like Sambandha, 1.1.2 is Abhidaya, and 1.1.3 is Prayojan, right? So there also it mentions that how Srimad Bhagavatam is like the ripened fruit of all Vedic literatures, correct? So we see that Srimad Bhagavatam is beginning with the glorification of Bhagavatam, and Srimad Bhagavatam is ending with the glorification of Bhagavatam. Of course, the very last verse of Srimad Bhagavatam is about Nam Sankirtan. It's about the chanting of the holy names of Krishna. As we all know, Bhagavad Gita, begins with Dhritarashtra's confusion, but it ends with surrender. And Srimad Bhagavatam begins with surrender and ends with Nam Sankirtan. And Chaitanya Charitamrita begins with Nam Sankirtan. It kind of teaches the Nam Sankirtan in practice, enacted by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. Right? So Srimad Bhagavatam is glorified in Srimad Bhagavatam itself like this. I think Harshit Prabhu, you have to go on mute. Somebody has to go on mute. Somebody has to go on mute. Hare Krishna. Okay. So let's try to just analyze this verse a bit, that how Srimad Bhagavatam is the best among all the Puranas, right? So Jiva Goswami has written 6 Sandarbhas, Shat Sandarbhas they are called, or they are also called as Bhagavad Sandarbhas. And among them, the first one which he wrote was Tattva Sandarbha. In Tattva Sandarbha, Jiva Goswami, and I hope you all know that Jiva Goswami has been considered as one of the topmost scholars of all times. Na bhuto na bhavishyati. In the past also never such a scholar has taken birth, nor in the future such a scholar will take birth. And he is one of the prominent acharyas of our Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, one of the 6 Goswamis. So he has compiled 4 lakh verses, it is said. The entire Mahabharata is 1 lakh verses. All the Shastras, all the Vedic literatures taken together is 1 lakh verses. And Jiva Goswami, he has himself composed 4 lakh verses, which is actually an enormous amount of work, considering that Bhagavad Gita is 700 verses, right? So just the scripture Bhagavad Gita is 700 shlokas, and Jiva Goswami has composed 4 lakh shlokas, But anyway, so one of the books which he has composed is Tattva Sandarbha, and in Tattva Sandarbha, as you know, as you can see by the title, Tattva, he is trying to establish the truth and how to approach the truth. So he says that there are 3 ways of getting knowledge, something which we all have heard in our first few sessions when we came to Krishna consciousness. All of us who have come to Krishna consciousness through Radhesham Prabhu or through some kind of a systematic preaching plan, I'm sure we all have gone through this kind of a session which was entitled Getting the Eyes to See God. And in that session we saw that there are 3 ways of getting knowledge, Pratyaksha Praman, Anuman Praman and Shabda Praman. Actually that is coming from Jiva Goswami's Tattva Sandarbha, when he is actually elaborating on that a lot. So Jiva Goswami is establishing that how, Pratyaksha Praman and Anuman Praman, they cannot be relied upon to understand absolute truth. And therefore, we should actually, if we have to understand absolute truth, we have to hear from Vedas as Shabda Praman. And then in Tattva Sandarbha, Jiva Goswami is establishing that how in this age of Kali Yuga, it is impossible for people like you and me to understand the Vedas or the real meaning of Vedas. As you all know, Krishna also says, he warns Arjuna, he cautions Arjuna, Ya Imam Pushpitam Vacham. He says that, please rise above these flowery words of the Vedas, because they are like a forest. In the Vedas, Vedas are like a forest, and if you are, alone in the forest, it's 99.9% sure you will get lost, right? So, but when we understand the Vedas through the Puranas, then Jiva Goswami says that Puranas are essential in this age of Kali to understand the essence of the Vedas. And that is why no wonder that Puranas have been actually called as fourth Vedas. In fact, in Skanda Puran, it is mentioned that how the Vedas personify, they are afraid. They are afraid that, we are afraid that, people will actually misunderstand us and misinterpret us, if they don't approach us through Puranas. Like that, the Vedas themselves are afraid. In Skanda Puran, it is mentioned. So therefore, Puranas are called as fifth Veda. And I came across one interesting understanding of these Puranas. Another meaning of the word Puran is the one that completes. Maybe it is coming from this word Puran, or Purna. So one meaning of, one understanding of Puranas is that, something like supplementary, or complementary, so to say. I would not say complementary, but maybe I don't know. There's some subtle difference between complementary and supplementary, but you understood, right? Something which completes, right? So Puranas are something which actually completes our understanding of the Vedas, right? Now there's a very interesting argument. If you have a gold bangle, right, and it is broken from somewhere, and you need to complete the gold bangle, you will not complete the gold bangle with steel. You will complete gold bangle with gold only, right? Similarly, those people who say that, as we all know, Vedas are like Shrutis and Puranas are like Smritis, right? There are some people who say that, we only believe in Shrutis, we don't believe in Smritis. There are some people like that. But Jiva Goswami establishes that, my dear friend, you are mistaken. He gives a lot of references in Tattva Sandarbha, how those people who undermine the importance of Puranas, they are grossly mistaken, right? And then it is said that how, just like gold cannot be completed by steel, you need gold only to complete the steel. Similarly, when we say that Puranas, they complete our understanding of Vedas, they are no less than Vedas, because only the knowledge of that level or knowledge of that quality can complete that understanding of the Vedas, right? So in that sense, Puranas have been called as the fifth Veda, and they are seen as non-different, and again Aparushaya, as eternal as the Vedas, though they are not Shrutis. See, when we say Shruti, there the point is that each and every syllable, each and every mantra is like unchanged. It is to be heard. And Smritis are like stories, they are like case studies, right? As you all know, those of you who have done MBA or even otherwise, many times when some topic has to be taught these days, people teach through case studies, experiential learning or some kind of case studies, because that makes the point very, very clear. Similarly, Puranas are like case studies which make the point very, very clear. But just because they are like case studies and they are not like some nice, Hari Om, just because they are not like those kind of shlokas, that does not mean that they are of less value. That's what Jiva Goswami is trying to say. So, and Jiva Goswami is also telling in Tattva Sandarbha how there are like 18 major Puranas, depending on which day of the Brahma they focus on, because every day of Brahma, one particular mode of goodness, passion, ignorance is prominent. And based on that, there are these 6 Puranas, in different modes. We all know that. And Jiva Goswami is telling that how he establishes this, very, very scientifically and very logically. He establishes in Tattva Sandarbha how Srimad Bhagavatam is the one Puran that reconciles all scriptures and perfectly represents the philosophy of Vedanta. Jiva Goswami is telling like that. So it's not just a matter of sentimental understanding. It is basically has been established very, very, like, we all know in Shad Goswami Astaka, it is said, Nana Shastra Vicharanaik Nipunau Sadharma Sanstapakau Vande Rupa Sanatanau Raghuyugau Shri Jiva Gopalakau. So these Goswamis, they were especially empowered by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to actually understand all the Shastras. Nana Shastra Vicharanakau Nipunau Sadharma Sanstapakau. So they were especially empowered by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to understand the various Shastras properly and get the essence, and present that. So on the authority of Jiva Goswami, we understand that how Puranas are no less than Vedas, and whatever understanding we get by Puranas is actually absolute knowledge. And he also establishes that how Srimad Bhagavatam is the topmost Puran. In fact, in line with this understanding, as we know, there are so many Puranas. You will not find any other Puran being glorified in Srimad Bhagavatam, but you will find Srimad Bhagavatam being glorified in all other Puranas like Matsya Puran, Padma Puran, and so on and so forth, right? So that's another commonsensical evidence that how Srimad Bhagavatam is actually the topmost among all. And now there is one more logical understanding that how it is very, very, it's common sense. Like for example, when you are trying to convince somebody about the perfection of life, when you are trying to convince somebody about what is better, Karma Yoga is better, or Dhyan Yoga is better, or Jnana Yoga is better, or Bhakti Yoga is better. Let us say very analytically, we are trying to convince somebody that how, because we all know according to the yoga ladder, we all know that how Karma Yoga, gradually matures into Jnana Yoga, which gradually matures into Dhyan Yoga, which gradually matures into Bhakti Yoga. And we all have read that how the perfection of Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga and Dhyan Yoga is that it has to culminate in Bhakti Yoga. If that does not culminate in Bhakti Yoga, then that has been kind of left incomplete. That yoga practice has been left incomplete. So now somebody may argue, somebody may question that why are you saying this way? What if the perfection of Bhakti Yoga is to culminate in Karma Yoga? What if the perfection of Bhakti Yoga is to culminate in Dhyan Yoga? There is a very simple logical argument to this. If there is a Supreme Personality of Godhead, which we have to understand from the, from the basis of Bhagavad Gita, if there is a Supreme Personality of Godhead, what is going to be the best thing, right? Is best thing going to be to become his competitor? Is best thing going to be to just manage your own business with having nothing to give or take with him? Or will the best, it's very commonsensical and it's very natural and it's very logical to understand that if there is a Supreme Personality of Godhead who is a Supreme Person, then the ultimate perfection of life must be to reunite with him in a loving relation, right? Which is what exactly is Bhakti Yoga. So it does not take rockets, it does not take, a very, very advanced brain or PhD to understand that how Bhakti Yoga must be the perfection of life. And that's why it is said, what is that? Aradhyo Bhagavan Vrajesh Tanayas Tadham Vrindavanam Ramya Kachidupasana Vrajavadhu Vargena Vakalpita. Those are the topmost worshippers of Krishna. Why? Because they have that simple loving devotion to Krishna, right? So just like it is so obvious to establish that how Bhakti Yoga is the supreme, because if Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then rendering loving service unto him must be the supreme occupation. Just like that is so obvious. Similarly, it is very obvious actually that Srimad Bhagavatam must be the best Puran. Why? Because it is said, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishto matta smritir jnanam apohanam cha vedescha sarver aham eva vedyo vedant kriti ved videva chaham. Is it not? So Krishna tells in Bhagavad Gita, vedescha sarver aham eva vedyo. That means Krishna is making it very clear that what is the goal of knowledge? What is the goal of knowledge? Like there is a saying in English, knowledge begins with fear of God. So once Radhesham Prabhu was telling me that how this is an incomplete saying, knowledge begins with fear of God. The correct saying is, knowledge begins with fear of God, but it culminates in love of God, right? So similarly, ultimately the essence of all knowledge, the ultimate goal of all knowledge is to know Krishna. Vedescha sarver aham eva vedyo. And Srimad Bhagavatam is presenting nothing other than Krishna. And therefore it is very commonsensical, it is very logical that Srimad Bhagavatam must be the topmost scripture. And similarly in Hari Vamsha Puran it says, Vede Ramayane Chaiva Purane Bharate Tatha Adau Ante Cha Madhye Cha Hari Sarvatra Giyate. Very clear. Vede Ramayane Chaiva. In all the Vedas, in Ramayana, in all the Puranas, and in Mahabharata, in Mahabharata, Adau Ante Cha Madhye Cha, in the beginning, in the middle, and at the end. What is there? Hari Sarvatra Giyate. It's all glorification of Lord. Right? And if that is the case, then it's very natural to understand that that scripture, which is actually exclusively meant to glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead, must be certainly topmost. Does not have to be a debate session actually for this, right? So Srimad Bhagavatam is exclusively about Krishna, and therefore Srimad Bhagavatam is actually topmost. And Vrindavan Das Thakur actually says, like I think we discussed this in one of the last, I think when we discussed the life of Parikshit Maharaj, the glories of Parikshit Maharaj and the lessons which we can take from Parikshit Maharaj. In that section we discussed this nice verse which Vrindavan Das Thakur writes, Chara Veda Dadhi Bhagavata Navanita Mathilena Shuka Khayena Parikshita. Char Veda Dadhi. If the four Vedas like curd, Char Veda Dadhi Bhagavata Navanita. And what is butter? Because the best butter is made out of curd, right? So what is the Bhagavatam? Bhagavatam is like that butter, Navanita. Mathilena Shuka. Who is churning the butter? Shukadeva Goswami. And Khayena Parikshita. Who is eating the butter? Parikshit Maharaj, right? So it's actually very, very evident that how Srimad Bhagavatam is a very, very special literature, and that's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Pramanamamalam, Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanamamalam, right? Yeah, somebody has to go on mute, please. There is one more thing which actually Chaitanya Chandra was talking about in his particular lecture. There is some noise coming from somewhere. If everybody can please go on mute. I think Santosh Prabhu, it's from your end. Santosh Kenjale Prabhu, I think some noise is coming from your end. If you can please mute. Anyway, so in this particular lecture of Chetan Chandra Prabhu, he was actually talking about one nice point. He was telling that how, see, in earlier times, uh, at least at the physical plane, life was very difficult. I mean, if you have to see it that way. For example, imagine earlier if people had to go to pass stool and urine, right? They would have to walk so much, so much long distance to pass stool and urine. Earlier, when people had to drink water, they would go at long distances to fetch some water, right? Now, I'm not saying that now we have advanced. We all know that how things were all fine even with that, and actually there was no need for such inventions. If especially if those inventions have taken us away from Krishna and nature. But the fact is, we are in this world currently, we are in this state of situation. So do we reject all these inventions? I mean, even though I have a bathroom in my home, do I just go out somewhere, for passing stool and urine? Even though I have water available in my tap, do I go to a well, 1 kilometer far and I fetch water? No. So the fact is, there are these convenient things available to us which actually were not there earlier. So now we as souls of Kali Yuga can actually take that much more advantage of all these so-called conveniences to now become more Krishna conscious, because the day-to-day necessities of life have become very easy for us, right? Since the day-to-day necessities of life have become so easy for us, we should now take advantage of this situation to become better devotees. We should not allow these conveniences to distract us from our path of Krishna consciousness. But anyway, the point here was that in earlier generations, when at least on a functional basis, at least on a physical platform, life was actually very difficult. And even in those difficult situations, people took the pain of learning, remembering and reciting and sharing these stories of Srimad Bhagavatam over generations for thousands and thousands of years. If these things have been recited, that means there must be some value to it. Otherwise, in today's world, if, like, for example, if I compose one story, I myself may forget that story after 1 month. In fact, this once happened. There was one British poet, and he was a very, very famous poet, and he was very known for his complex writings, very, very hi-fi, very abstract, complex writings. So once he composed a nice poem, and there was this particular society which wanted to nominate this guy for getting an award, for giving an award. But there was one particular stanza in this poem which was very, very difficult even for the committee to understand. So they called upon him. They said that, my dear poet, can you please clarify what do you mean by this stanza? We are actually considering your poem for an award. What do you mean by this stanza? So this British poet said he actually read it 1 or 2 times and he thought a lot. And then he said, actually, the day when I composed it, God and I actually very clearly knew the meaning. Unfortunately, today only God knows the meaning. Like that he said. So, actually it's a reality. Sometimes we do not even remember the purport of the meaning of certain things which we may compose. Right? Now, given this, if there are certain stories, if there are certain lessons which are being passed down from generations to generations over the, hundreds and thousands of years, especially when the life, there are so many other challenges in life which have to be taken care of, it only goes to show that, there must be something of value. They are not something ordinary. They are not something ordinary. The fact that, they are living the test of time and they are carrying on means they are not ordinary. There is one more interesting thing about how Srimad Bhagavatam is very, very unique. It is said that Vedas, they teach us as master. Puranas, they teach us like friend. But Srimad Bhagavatam teaches us like master as well as like friend, and also additionally like a lover. Right? So the purport is, as we know, Vedas are like Shruti. And Vedas means Veda Vakya, we know, right? Prabhupada has so many times said Veda Vakya. Veda Vakya means bol diya na, bas bol diya, kaam khatam, no argument, no debate, right? So Vedas teach like master. There is no scope of discussion, there is no scope of argument. Ye instruction mila, aapko bas karo, jo bola so karo. That's like Vedas, master wala approach. Puranas, they are like stories, 2 friends discussing certain things, and as suggestions, as stories, very in a more friendly way, with some scope of discussion, question, answer. With that, Puranas, they are trying to drive home the message, right? And Srimad Bhagavatam, certainly, there are places wherein Srimad Bhagavatam is very instructive. That's where it is being acting like master. There are some places wherein Srimad Bhagavatam, of course, being a Purana, being narrating all the stories with so many wonderful lessons, it's acting like a friend. And because Srimad Bhagavatam is telling us about the wonderful sweetness of Krishna, because Srimad Bhagavatam is establishing Supreme Personality of Godhead as a loving and lovable God, you see, this is very wonderful. Krishna is a very loving God and he is a very lovable God, right? So Srimad Bhagavatam is establishing Krishna as that, and actually it's like a love letter of Krishna to us, right? So in that sense, Srimad Bhagavatam is also instructing us like a lover, that if we are hankering for that love, if we are, like lost love, then where will we find our lost love? Srimad Bhagavatam is telling us. And therefore, it's like very natural that Sanatana Goswami, in this wonderful prayers which he writes in Krishna Leela Stava, Sanatana Goswami says, Mad Eka Bandho Mat Sangin Mad Eka Bandho Mat Sangin Mad Guru Man Mahadhana Man Nistaraka Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. Like that he says. One second, let me put an enter here. Mad Eka Mat Bandho Mat Sangin Mad Eka. Sorry, it's like this. Mad Eka Bandho Mat Sangin Mad Guru Man Mahadana Man Nistaraka Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. This is how it is. Okay, shift F5. Yeah. So therefore, it's very natural that Sanatana Goswami, in this very, very famous prayers, these 7-8 stanzas which he has written in glorification of Srimad Bhagavatam, this comes in Krishna Leela Stava. He says, Mad Eka Bandho. Srimad Bhagavatam is like my one friend, my only friend. Mat Sangin, my companion. Mat Guru, my teacher. Man Mahadhana, my greatest wealth. Man Nistaraka, my deliverer. Mad Bhagya, my great fortune. Mad Ananda, my bliss. Namostute, I offer my obeisances to Srimad Bhagavatam. Sanatana Goswami is telling. So this was about the very first sloka, right, wherein we saw how Srimad Bhagavatam is the best among all the Puranas and so many things associated with it. Now let's proceed, right? So that was verse number 16 and 17. Let's see the verse number 18. Why is this coming like this? Yeah, let's see verse number 18 now. Srimad Bhagavatam Puranam Amalam Yad Vaishnavanam Priyam Yasmin Paramahamsam Ekam Amalam Jnanam Paramagiyate Tatra Jnana Viraga Bhakti Sahitam Neskarmyam Aviskritam Tatshrinvam Supathan Vicharana Paro Bhaktya Vimucchena Naraha. So again, Suta Goswami, this is like very, very wonderful shloka, wherein he says, we will see the meaning in a while, because we are going to every line of this actually. Srimad Bhagavatam, okay, let me just cover this very briefly right now, because that's exactly what we are going to go deep into in the next few slides. So Srimad Bhagavatam Puranam Amalam Yad Vaishnavanam Priyam. So Srimad Bhagavatam Puranam Amalam means it's the topmost scripture. Yad Vaishnavanam Priyam, it's dear to all the devotees. Yasmin Paramhamsyam Ekam Amalam Jnanam Paramagiyate. Yasmin Paramhamsam Ekam Amalam. This is something which is relished by the Paramhamsas. Tattva Jnana Virag Bhakti Sahitam Naishkarmyam Avishkritam. This is free, from everything else, and this actually induces Jnana, Vairagya and Bhakti, in us. Tashinavansu Pathan Vicharana Paro Bhaktya Vimucchena Nara. When we hear and read Srimad Bhagavatam, we get bhakti to Sri Krishna. Paro Bhaktya Vimucchena Nara. Just a brief understanding of this verse, but now let us get into details of each of these lines, because each of these lines actually correspond to certain characteristics of Srimad Bhagavatam, right? So, is this not going? Yeah. So it corresponds to certain characteristics of Srimad Bhagavatam, and that those characteristics can be remembered using an acronym PURE, P-U-R-E, PURE. Pure understanding for renunciation and ecstasy. What is Srimad Bhagavatam? Srimad Bhagavatam is a pure understanding for renunciation and ecstasy. We'll understand these things one by one as we proceed. So let's understand the first thing now, pure, right? How Srimad Bhagavatam is pure. So if you remember, the very first line of this shloka said, Srimad Bhagavatam Puranam Amalam Yad Vaishnavanam Priyam. Srimad Bhagavatam is the spotless Puran, and it is very, very dear to the devotees, right? So let us try to now quickly analyze and understand why Srimad Bhagavatam is called as, and as we know how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is also telling, Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanam Avalam. So when it is said that Srimad Bhagavatam is pure, when it is said Srimad Bhagavatam is spotless, what exactly is meant by it? Does it mean that all other scriptures are dirty? Then how can they be scriptures? They are not dirty. They are not dirty. But here, the understanding of pure is not against contamination. It's not that Mahabharata is contaminated or Ramayana is contaminated, or for that matter any other scripture is contaminated. No. They are also very, very pure, because they are also Shastras. In fact, in different sampradayas, for example, in Madhva Sampradaya, Mahabharata is kept at the highest esteem. In Ramanuja Sampradaya, in Sri Sampradaya, Ramayana is kept at the highest esteem. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu He has taken the best two things from all four sampradayas, and he has kept Srimad Bhagavatam as at the topmost, at the highest pedestal. Why? Because we will see that there is a very, very specific reason because of that, and that's why Srimad Bhagavatam is pure, right? So when we are saying pure, it is not against contamination, but it is against dilution. That's another understanding of pure. Pure means it is like undiluted. It is not diluted, right? So let's understand that more in more details. So if we try to analyze the nature of this world, so just a status check. Uddhavanand Prabhu, everything is fine, and you are able to see me, hear me, and see the slides. Everybody?
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji. Everything
Okay.
crystal clear.
Okay. So Haribol, fine. So let us try to understand that when it is said that Srimad Bhagavatam offers a very, very pure understanding of life and the world, what does it really mean, right? So we all know from the authority of Bhagavad Gita, which by the way nobody can challenge. All the four sampradayas, they may say that okay, for us this is the highest scripture, for us this is the highest scripture, but everybody has to agree upon Bhagavad Gita, because it is said that to be able to be called a bona fide sampradaya, you have to have Bhagavad Gita as your foundational shastra, and then you have to have a commentary on Vedanta Sutra and so on and so forth, right? So Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Dukhalayam Ashashvatam, is it not? So this world has been labeled as Dukhalayam, right? Nothing else, right? Suffering is a defining reality of this world. But now people may actually take this to one extreme, right? And that is where all the misunderstandings come, which is where we think, oh, you know what, Bhagavatam says this, but for life actually Mahabharata and Ramayana is more important and things like that. If we really understand from Acharyas, we will see that actually there is no contradiction. I mean, come on, Srila Prabhupada is not seeing contradiction between Sanatana Dharma and Christianity. When somebody asked him, if you all know, we remember that famous interview, somebody with like, this very curly black hair, he is asking this question to Srila Prabhupada in America in those times, that, oh, you are saying, Krishna is the supreme God and you are talking about this, but our religion says this, don't you see any contradictions? Prabhupada says, I don't see any contradiction. Any religion which teaches love of God is a bona fide religion, and I don't see any contradictions, right? Now, when Acharyas don't see contradictions even across sometimes different religions, what to speak of, trying to fight between various scriptures of the same, Sanatana Dharma, right? So that is only because of a narrow, only because of an immature understanding of something. When we do not understand the context properly, like, if you, it's very, very important to understand that our Shastras, especially Sanatana Dharma, our Shastras, they are not factual in nature. Certainly they are factual in terms of that they describe facts, but that's not the main USP of those Shastras. They are more, they are not information centric, they are transformation centric. Our Shastras, they are not information centric, they are transformation centric. And therefore it becomes important to not only focus on the content, but also to focus on the context. That becomes very, very important. So now when we say that, oh, you know what, Srimad Bhagavatam basically is for a dying man. Are you a dying man? No, you are not a dying man. You are in the middle of family life. So okay, so Bhagavatam is probably not immediately relevant to you. This can be a very, very dangerous understanding. Bhagavatam is certainly relevant in terms of telling us, what we are supposed to, what should be our inner emotions and what should be the overall direction of life and where are we supposed to head, because ultimately in this life itself we want to achieve the goal of life, right? At the same time, there are so many other things which are needed to know how to function well in this world, which also Bhagavatam tells, which we have discussed once in one of our previous classes, right? But anyway, let me talk about various extremes and let me tell about how even Bhagavatam gives actually a balanced understanding of things, and that's what we are going to discuss in this session. Pure understanding for renunciation and ecstasy, right? So we all know on the authority of Bhagavad Gita, which everybody agrees upon, that this world is inherently a place of suffering, right? Suffering is a defining reality of this world. So let me just go back and emphasize this point, a little bit more. Like, we all know there's this movie Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gham, correct? I mean, yesterday only I gave a class, so this point is fresh in my mind. Actually, that's not what we see as reality in this world. The reality of this world is actually, if I have to say in a mild tone, it is, Kabhi Khushi Aksar Gham. But if I say from perspective of Bhagavad Gita, it is Aksar Gham. That's it. That should be the title of the movie. So it's not that there is a lot of happiness in this world, and yeah, there is some suffering as well. The defining reality of this world is, it is like a river, and you are in the river and you are getting wet. If you don't want to be wet, you have to be out of this river. You have to be at least not in material consciousness, you have to be in Krishna consciousness, right? And it's very obvious to understand. Let's look at our body itself. From top of the hair to the bottom of our feet, uh, there are doctors for each and every part of the body, and each and every part of the body can give us infinite amount of suffering. Each and every body part can give us infinite amount of suffering. Compare this with how many body parts can actually give us happiness. Maybe one or two, that's it, right? Hardly one or two body parts are there which can actually give us some so-called happiness, which actually is dukha yono yavate, right? So only some body parts can give us happiness. So therefore there is a limit to how much we can enjoy and how long we can enjoy. Ultimately things gravitate towards suffering. As Krishna is telling, Adi Antavantu Konteya na teshu ramate buddha, right? So that's the defining reality of this world. We have to be convinced about it. It's not that we are saying that no, that's actually one way to look at this world. But another way to look at this world is actually there is a lot of happiness. That is there only when we are Krishna conscious, right? If we are seeing from the eyes of a Krishna conscious person, then yes, this world is non-different from a spiritual world. Vishwam, what is that? Vishwam Purna, what is that? Vishwam Purna Sukhayate Vidhi Mahindra Dishtakita Yate Yat Karn. No, I'm beginning from beginning. Kaivalyam Narya. That's how it begins. But yeah, Vishwam Purna Sukhayate. Right? So when we see from the eyes of pure devotees, this middle world also becomes Vishwam Purna Sukhayate. But they are not talking about that happiness which we may be thinking that no, probably there is some happiness in this world. No, it's only because of Krishna consciousness, right? So ultimately, nobody can argue, nobody can deny that suffering is a defining reality of this world. And if this is not enough for us to be convinced, let us take an example. Let's say, for 2-3 months we were working very, very hard to crack CAT or GATE or GRE or 12th exam or whatever it may be. 2-3 months we were working very, very hard, right? And we were eagerly looking forward to that day when our exam will get over and there will be vacations, and then we will go on a vacation trip, nice vacation trip with family, right? Or yatra with devotees, whatever, you relish more. So, we were looking forward to, that day when the exams will get over. And there was no limit to our happiness when exams got over, and let's say God forbid that day itself we meet an accident and we get some injury or something, and that injury, even if it is a small thorn prick in our foot, even if it is some knee pain or a fracture, that is enough to spoil our entire happiness, right? So please note that little happiness is not able to counteract more suffering. Sufferings always outweigh the happiness, or even infinite amount of happiness is उसके ऊपर पानी फिर जाता है थोड़े सफरिंग से. These things actually very, very clearly point at how this world is inherently suffering oriented. That's why we say na mritma amrit gamaya, tamaso ma jyotir gamaya, asatma sat gamaya, right? This world is inherently dark. It is a place of illusion and sufferings, right? So we should not have any doubt that no, it is actually Bhagavatam's perspective. No, that's the defining reality of this world. However, where many times devotees go wrong is as follows. One wrong understanding is that, Krishna has said that अरे पत्नी के साथ झगड़ा हो गया, बच्चा स्कूल में फेल हो गया, मेरे को भी जॉब में ध्यान लगाता नहीं हूँ, केवल जॉब में रीडिंग हियरिंग चैंटिंग करता रहता हूँ, तो काम ढंग से किया नहीं, तो बॉस ने धक्का मार के निकाल दिया. Now we are saying, see, Bhagavatam has said, Bhagavad Gita has said, this world is Dukhalayam Shashvatam. That is bogus. That is wrong. That is a wrong understanding. That's not what Bhagavatam is telling. So one extreme is that to conclude that, existence in this world only is suffering. मतलब आप कुछ भी करिए आपको सफर करोगे आप. Existence is only suffering, and hence the only philosophical question worth asking is whether to commit suicide today or tomorrow. I mean, there are some very, very negative people, जो मतलब उनके लाइफ में इतना परेशानी हुआ है या whatever, and now they have, because you all know Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, arto artarti jigyasu jnani, correct? 4 kinds of people come to Krishna. So those who are in distress, they also come to Krishna. So many times those who are in distress, when they come to Krishna consciousness, they latch on to this wrong understanding that, actually it's all frustration around, it's all suffering. Prabhu, just chant, only there is nothing else. And they take this as an excuse to not do their duties well. They take this as an excuse to not do their part in making sure that their varna on ashram is decorated, it's not polluted. Right? It is said once Bhakti-Rasamrita Maharaj, and I was in Mayapur attending ILS, and at that time, different speakers, they gave Bhagavatam classes. So once Bhakti-Rasamrita Maharaj was giving Bhagavatam class, and since the class was for all GBCs, all sannyasis, so many such leaders were present in the class, he actually, either he chose that topic or that topic was given to him, that how there should be collective leadership or something like that. So in that he was telling that how ashram, we are supposed to decorate the ashram. We are not supposed to contaminate or pollute the ashram. So if we are brahmacharis, we are supposed to be ideal brahmacharis. If we are grahasthas, we are supposed to be ideal grahasthas. Not that we take little bit of brahmachari ashram and little bit of grahastha ashram and create our own ashram, in the name of Srimad Bhagavatam or on the strength of Srimad Bhagavatam. That's not what is to be done. right? So one extreme is existence is suffering, and hence only philosophical question worth asking is whether to commit suicide today or tomorrow. That's a very, very negative outlook. That's not what Srimad Bhagavatam promotes. When Srimad Bhagavatam says suffering is a defining reality of life or this world, that is a fact. But it does not mean that we come to this understanding and therefore not bother about duties and responsibilities, or sometimes people equate material frustration with spiritual advancement, as I have written here, right? So I would like to just give one more example at this point in time. It is said that to be able to practice Krishna consciousness well, we need to rise above our body. We need to rise above our family. We need to rise above our profession. We need to, if I can speak this word, we need to forget our body. We need to forget our family. We need to forget our profession to be able to really, really intensely and sincerely practice Krishna consciousness. This is a fact. But what it means to forget family, what it means to forget body. To forget body does not mean that, now I don't take care of body. That's a wrong understanding. Forgetting body means taking care of body in such a way that now body does not become an obstacle in my Krishna consciousness. Forgetting family means taking care of family in such a nice way that my family does not become an obstacle in my Krishna consciousness. Forgetting professional career means taking care of professional career in such a way that it does not become an obstacle in my Krishna consciousness. So this has to be understood very, very clearly, because we cannot deny this reality. Neither we have to get carried away by this reality of family, profession, job, understanding that this is all that is and there is nothing vertical. Neither we have to get carried away by this reality, nor we have to deny this reality. We cannot deny this reality. I have this body-mind vehicle, right? Now this body-mind vehicle is needed for me to be able to go wherever I want to go, right? Now many a times, sometimes people say that, oh, you know what? भक्ति में आने के पहले भी तुम बहुत गुस्सा करते थे, भक्ति के आने के बाद भी तुम बहुत गुस्सा करते हो. क्या हुआ भक्ति से? भक्ति में कोई पावर नहीं है. भक्ति has not changed anything. So many times we have a very wrong understanding. Please note, we have a vehicle of this mind and body, correct? We are soul, which we are sitting on this vehicle of mind and body. Now, with this vehicle of mind and body, earlier, when we did not come to Krishna consciousness, when we did not get the wonderful message of Krishna by the grace of Srila Prabhupada and all our senior devotees, we were driving this car of body and mind in some direction, right? We were driving in some direction. Now that we have been told that, oh, this is the message of Krishna, this is the tattva, this is the siddhanta, and so on and so forth. Now we have taken a U-turn. And now we are driving in a different direction. But that vehicle is there, na? That vehicle of body and mind is there with us. Usko thodi chhod ke road pe khada ho jayenge hum. Right? So we are sitting on that vehicle of body and mind. Our direction of driving has changed. Point number one. Our direction of driving has changed now that we have come to Krishna consciousness. But whatever facilities or whatever obstacles this vehicle will impose, we will have to face those. In fact, if I was a rash driver, maybe at best I will, because of some good advice, I will now be little less rash driver. I will try to be more conscious of making choices. That is the purpose of training. The purpose of training is to learn to use our free will properly. That's the purpose of training. In one line, the purpose of training is to learn to use our free will properly. So now, even with the same body and mind vehicle, certain things I will not be able to change, but certain things, maybe my driving style, the maximum speed with which I will be able to go. If I have a Maruti 800, I will be able to go at that speed. If I have a Mercedes or a BMW or a Porsche, I will be able to go at that speed. If I have a cycle, I will be able to go at that speed. The speed with which I am able to go maybe is, I can't do much about it, right? So there are certain things I can't change, but there are certain things. Earlier I was too rash while driving. मतलब सामने आदमी को देखा उसके ऊपर ही चलाता था, रोड पे नहीं चलाता था, आदमी के ऊपर चलाता था. Now that I have understood the message of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, now I know, oh, while driving I have to be a little careful, right? So it's not that nothing changes. Some things change, some things don't change, right? But anyway, coming back to this, I don't know why I got deviated to that theme. That's a totally different theme altogether. But coming back here, I was talking about how suffering is the defining reality of this world. What's the time? What's the time? 6. Okay. So I'm going to speak till what? We started at 5:15. So 5:15 and 1.5 hours. So 6:45. Okay. So I'll speak for another 40-45 minutes and then we'll have some discussion. So when we know that suffering is a defining reality of this life or this world, we are not supposed to come to wrong conclusions that it's all about suffering, So आ बैल मुझे मार. एक काम करते हैं, अपना फैमिली लाइफ को जितना बर्बाद हो सकता है उतना बर्बाद कर लेते हैं. अपना करियर को जितना बर्बाद हो सकता है कर सकते हैं. क्यों? क्योंकि then you know what, we'll be able to realize Krishna better. we should never equate material frustration with spiritual advancement. That's not what Krishna teaches. Otherwise, Krishna would not have given Bhagavad Gita to Arjun. कोई सड़क पे कोना किनारे में दारू पी के जो लेटा रहता ना रोड पे, कृष्णा भगवद गीता उसको देते, बोलता है चलो तूने नहीं अपना जिंदगी बर्बाद कर लिया, तो spiritual knowledge. So that's not what is the intent of spiritual life. Now what is the other extreme? The other extreme is, अभी देखो, this world cannot be rejected and you have to live every moment, right? And family life is such a wonderful thing, and we have to enjoy every moment of family life, and our job and profession, we have to we have to get into it very, very nicely, because we can't take shortcuts, we can't cut corners. It's a long life, it's not a matter of 1 day or 2 days, it's a long life. बुरा प्रकार देखो, बात कर लेंगे वीडियो पर, उठा लिए. So it's a long life, so we should rather get into all these things very, very nicely. Yes, we should get into it to do the needful, whatever has to be done, but to get completely preoccupied in improving the condition of life would become another extreme, right? We are thinking that, oh, this is all that is, and now let me try my best to make my situation as best as I can. As best as I can. That means I am not paying attention to the fact that I am going to die one day. I am not paying attention to the fact that this is not the ultimate reality. Ultimately, this is illusory in one sense, right? And then we get so preoccupied by dharma, artha, kama that our goal and focus becomes to enjoy good life. Then and if we are religious, if we are following dharma and all that, then as we discussed in one of the sessions earlier, it becomes a very happy going, pious life. Srimad Bhagavatam says, sorry, this is the wrong approach. So Srimad Bhagavatam does not varnish the reality. जो reality है ना, टॉयलेट है, टॉयलेट मतलब एक abominable place, तो उसको टॉयलेट जैसा ही दिखाएंगे. टॉयलेट में सोफा सेट लगाने का, एकदम बढ़िया से टाइल्स बना के चकाचक बना देने का. Of course, toilet should be clean. Nobody is saying that toilet should be dirty. Just because toilet is an abominable place does not mean now you throw stool and urine everywhere. Just because toilet is supposed to be a abominable place. Arey, toilet ko also you can keep clean, na? But then, see, this analogy is actually very good. Somehow this, Krishna inspired me to speak this right now. So imagine in the whole home, toilet is considered to be an abominable place. Is this not a reality? It is a reality. Now, what is the one wrong understanding? One wrong understanding is, अच्छा abominable place है ना, पूरा गंदा कर दो उसको. Stool and urine को पूरा सब तरफ बिखेर दो. जिससे कि we will be able to always remember that how it is an abominable place. That is one wrong extreme. The other wrong extreme is, अभी उसी को अपना घर बना लो. उधर ही अपना सोफा सेट वगैरह, एक तरफ लाइब्रेरी, एक तरफ ये सब ब्रीफकेस वगैरह, लैपटॉप वगैरह कमोड के ऊपर बैठ के, that's another extreme, right? So both are wrong. So therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam does not varnish the reality. It says that any attempt to become happy without Krishna is delusion. In that sense, Srimad Bhagavatam is called pure. Because if somebody says that, by practicing dharma very nicely, by living a life of goodness, if you all remember, there are, certainly everybody remembers there are 3 modes of material nature: goodness, passion and ignorance. Sattva gun, rajogun and tamas. What are the 2 characteristics of tamas? 3 characteristics: nidra, alas and pramad. Correct? These are the 3 characteristics of tamogun. What are the 2 characteristics of rajogun? Sang and trishna. And what are the 2 characteristics of satogun? Sukham and jnanam. Is it not? So that sukham, or that sense of knowledge, or that sense of happiness actually could also be the golden shackles. There are golden shackles, there are silver shackles, and there are iron shackles. So goodness is golden shackles. Now, does it mean goodness is bad? Not at all. We need to rise to goodness to be able to launch to pure Krishna consciousness. That is where knowledge is called as a double-edged sword. Every statement can be understood properly also, it can be misunderstood properly also. When it is said that mode of goodness can also bind you with golden shackles, that preacher or that speaker is not saying that stay away from goodness. That's not what he is saying. He is saying that we have to rise to goodness, because there are other shlokas which say that unless we come at the platform of goodness, it will be very difficult for us to take the leap towards bhakti. It's like that, dry grass which ignites very nicely. It's like going to airport. If I have to go somewhere and to catch a flight, right, I cannot catch my flight from my home. I will need to go to airport to catch a flight. So coming to goodness is like that, right? But at the same time, it does not mean that that becomes my goal, right? Unless there is Krishna, unless there is transcendence, we cannot become happy. We cannot get that happiness which we are actually hankering for. It is only illusory, just a different degree of illusion. So living a pious life certainly makes us happier. There is no doubt about it. It is certainly better than living an abominable life or atheistic life or adharmic life. Certainly it is better and we must do that. But that's not the ultimate happiness we are looking for, and therefore we must include and surpass that. We must include and surpass it. right? And there is a reason why Srimad Bhagavatam does not do that. I mean, does not dilute. There is a reason why Srimad Bhagavatam does not dilute. One reason is contextual reason. Contextual reason means we know that Parikshit Maharaj, he has been cursed to die, right? So now there is a dying man. अभी उसको कितना तुम पेंटिंग करोगे रियलिटी का? वो मर रहा है, उसको सीधे बताओ कि मरने वाला है भैया, देखो तुमको परलोक सिधारने से पहले परलोक सुधार जाओ. That's what you will tell him, correct? So there is a contextual reason, because it is primarily the setting of Srimad Bhagavatam. Like the setting of Bhagavad Gita is what? A married man, a householder in the middle of battlefield, amidst action, and with all his duties in front of him. That's the setting of Bhagavad Gita. And what is the setting of Srimad Bhagavatam? भैया हो गया सब कुछ, छोड़ छाड़ के आ गए, छोड़ा है हम वो गलियां, अभी बैठे हैं इधर गंगा जी के किनारे, अभी भाई बोल रहे हैं चलो भैया एक dying man को क्या करना है, right? That's the setting of Srimad Bhagavatam. But what devotees mistake to understand is, please note what Parikshit Maharaj is asking. Parikshit Maharaj is not telling Shukdev Goswami, भाई महाराज मेरे को भाई वो बताइए जो एक मरने वाला आदमी को करना होता है. तब तो हम बोलते कि भाई श्रीमद भागवतम में जो कुछ भी लिखा है खाली मरने वाले को पढ़ना है, तो मरते समय 5 मिनट पहले आप भागवतम पढ़ लीजिए. देखिए क्वेश्चन क्या पूछते हैं परीक्षित महाराज. ओ ट्रस्टवर्दी ब्राह्मणस, this is actually before Shukdev Goswami arrives. O trustworthy Brahmanas, I now ask you about my immediate duty. Please, after proper deliberation, tell me of the unalloyed duty of everyone in all circumstances. Please understand this. Parikshit Maharaj, certainly the setting of Srimad Bhagavatam is that it is being spoken to a dying man. Yes. And certainly one of the questions of Parikshit Maharaj is that what should a dying man do? But that was not the only question which Parikshit Maharaj asked. And that was not the only subject matter of Srimad Bhagavatam. Parikshit Maharaj is asking, please after proper deliberation, tell me of the unalloyed duty of everyone in all circumstances, and specifically of those who are just about to die. You see this? So we should never ever be under a misconception that Srimad Bhagavatam has absolutely no lessons for me to live in this world. It is only supposed to just understand our love for Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam tells us how to live in this world so that we can through that also revive our love for Krishna. Right? So अगर श्रीमद् भागवतम को छोड़ दिया तो हो सकता है ऑपरेशन सक्सेसफुल पेशेंट डाइड भी हो सकता है. Right? Now, does it mean we have to reject everything else? No. We have to understand things in perspective. We should always have that balanced guidance. We should have that balanced approach so that we understand कि life में किस चीज का क्या role है and how these various jigsaw puzzles का pieces they fit together to make a big picture. Right? Okay. So, what is that? Yeah, and if that is not enough, by the way, so what are we talking about? We are still talking about the first characteristic of Srimad Bhagavatam, that it is pure, right? That means it does not paint an illusory picture of reality, and it does not try to give some soothing words that actually ये खराब है लेकिन what आप ऐसा करो तो आप अच्छा हो जाएगा. You can actually practice dharma, artha, kama, and then you will become happy in this world. No. Srimad Bhagavatam says nothing doing. You just can't become happy. You better try to cultivate your Krishna consciousness, right? And therefore, if you see in Srimad Bhagavatam 7th canto, Prahlad Maharaj actually says this very wonderful shloka. Yasmat priya viyoga, Yasmat priya viyoga samyoga janma, shokagnina sakala yoni shudayamana, dukkhoshadham tadapi dukkham atadhyaham, bhumam ramami vadame tavadasya yogam. So Prahlad Maharaj is telling, he is summarizing the nature of this world, right? See, that is where Srimad Bhagavatam is special. It is like pure because it does not paint a different reality just to please you, right? Just to please us that does not paint a different reality of this world. It just gives, मतलब जैसे बोलते हैं ना कि किसी अंधे को अंधा नहीं बोलना चाहिए या कोई बदसूरत है तो उसको आईना नहीं दिखाना चाहिए. Like that we say, right? Srimad Bhagavatam says, no, I will show a mirror. I will actually show the reality. That's why it is said pure, right? So what is Prahlad Maharaj telling here? Prahlad Maharaj is telling that what do we want, right? What do we want? Priya apriya viyoga samyoga. हमको जो अच्छा लगता है प्रिय उसको हम पाना चाहते हैं और हमको जो नहीं अच्छा लगता है उससे हम दूर रहना चाहते हैं. That is what we want to do in this life, right? However, the nature of this world is, in fact, जब हम preaching करते हैं तो I am sure many of you, we always define misery to people, right? We say, what is definition of misery? Misery means to get what you don't want and to not get what you want. Correct? That is coming from the shloka of Prahlad Maharaj, right? Priya apriya viyoga samyoga. That normally, ideally, we want to get those things which we like and we want to stay away from those things which we don't like. But the nature of this world is In fact, Murphy's law takes it all the more ahead. Murphy's law says that whatever you don't want, you will surely get. I'm sure many of us know Murphy's law, right? In fact, that's why it is said that worry is a prayer to get those things which you don't want. Worry is a prayer to get those things which you don't want. Like many times you see some people worry. अरे मैंने घर का ताला बंद किया है क्या, मैंने घर का ताला बंद किया है क्या, अरे वो आदमी मेरा बेटा गया है ऑफिस, मर तो नहीं जाएगा, रास्ते में एक्सीडेंट तो नहीं हो जाएगा, अरे मेरे बेटे का रास्ते में एक्सीडेंट तो नहीं हो जाएगा, अरे मेरे बेटे का रास्ते में एक्सीडेंट तो नहीं हो जाएगा. दिस वरी इज एक्चुअली अ प्रेयर to get those things which you don't want. You are indirectly cultivating this thought and you are attracting negativity, right? But anyway, so Priya, Apriya, Viyoga, Samyoga, that's what is one characteristic Prahlad Maharaj is telling. And then he is telling, Dukh Aushadam Tadapi Dukkham. I mean, whatever you try to do to rectify your current situation, unless you do the ultimate solution, that solution will actually is going to lead to further problem. Dukh Aushadam Tadapi Dukkham. And the classic example of this is Maharaj Chitraketu, Harshashoka, right? That how, he was so much wanting to get a son. It is said he had millions of wives. मतलब Krishna से भी ज़्यादा. Now somebody may ask, ऐसा कैसे हो गया? अब ये brain doubt है. I mean, this could be indicative. This may mean that बहुत सारी wives like that. So please note again, our scriptures are not information centric; they are transformation centric, right? So Srimad Bhagavatam describes how, who is this guy? Chitraketu Maharaj, how he had so many wives, but yet he was wanting so much, hankering for one son. Priya Priya Viyoga Samyoga. He wanted to get something. First of all, Prahlad Maharaj is telling that the nature of this world is that not every time you get what you want. But because of the blessings of who were they, Angira Muni or Parvat Muni or Narad Muni, because of their blessings, Chitraketu Maharaj got what he wanted. But what happened? After getting what he wanted, when he lost it, that was more bigger misfortune than his earlier happiness. That actually brought more unhappiness. Dukh aushadam tadapi dukkham. The medicine actually ended up becoming even more worse problem than the original problem itself. And Prahlad Maharaj goes on to say in the very next to next sloka, a father and mother cannot protect their child. A physician and medicine cannot relieve a suffering patient, and a boat on the ocean cannot protect a drowning man. अब आप मेरे को एक बात बताइए, गलत है क्या ये? गलत नहीं है, ये करेक्ट है. इन दैट सेंस श्रीमद् भागवतम गिव्स प्योर मैसेज. जो रियलिटी है वो दिखा रहा है. लेकिन अब इसका मतलब ये है क्या कि अपने मम्मी पापा को आप बोलोगे भैया क्या होगा, आपके करने से कुछ भी नहीं होगा, आप कितना भी कर लो, आप थोड़ी प्रोटेक्ट कर सकते हो. इसका मतलब कुछ करे नहीं क्या माँ बाप अपने बच्चे के लिए? दैट्स नॉट व्हाट इज द पॉइंट. व्हाट द पॉइंट इज, राइट? सो वी हैव टू देयरफॉर मेनी टाइम्स डिवोटीज दे टेक सम स्टेटमेंट्स फ्रॉम भागवतम and either they misapply on their life or they label Bhagavatam as something which is not relevant to us. I say both are wrong. Both are wrong. So it's not to be done like that. So Bhagavatam stresses that material. Bhagavatam क्या बोलना चाह रहा है? Bhagavatam बोलना चाह रहा है कि क्योंकि अगर प्रहलाद महाराज अंधकूपम बोल रहे हैं पर वो भी तो गृहस्थ आश्रम में ज्वाइन कर रहे हैं ना, वो भी तो मैरी कर रहे हैं ना. एक तरफ बोल रहे हैं मैरिड लाइफ इज लाइक दिस, दूसरी तरफ खुद भी तो मैरी किया ना उन्होंने. Therefore we have to understand the real import or the real purport of things, right? And that's where acharyas are needed. So Bhagavatam stresses, so what is the point here? What is Bhagavatam trying to say? Bhagavatam is telling, देखो भैया, material solution करिए आप जो भी करना है, but ultimately it will not work. We have to transcend the world ultimately. If you really want to achieve the perfection of human form of life, if you really want to achieve the purpose because of which you have been given human form of life, then please note that please practice Krishna consciousness. And it is an urgency because we can die any moment. Padam padam yat vipadam na tesham, or kamala dala jala jivana talamala, right? So that's the point. So now somebody will say, Acha bhai. Again, somebody can come to a wrong understanding. Okay, so let the life become miserable. We have already discussed this, but I wanted to highlight again. So let the life become miserable? No. We have to work hard to discharge our duties and responsibilities properly. And I have listed down certain reasons why we should do that. Right? So again, let me tell you what I am talking about. We are still discussing how Srimad Bhagavatam is pure and what it means when we say Srimad Bhagavatam is pure, and how sometimes devotees, they misunderstand certain statements of Bhagavatam either to misapply on their life or to say that Bhagavatam only deals with this subject matter. Both are wrong understanding. Now what we are talking about is that, okay, whenever Bhagavatam makes such statements, which is about showing mirror, then does it mean that we should let the life become miserable? That same thing like, material frustration is equal to spiritual advancement. No. We have to work hard to discharge our duties and responsibilities properly. Why should we do that? I have written 4 or 5 reasons here. Number 1, to create a favorable environment for us to act. As I said, neither we have to get preoccupied by the reality, or get carried away by the reality, nor we can reject the reality. We have to accept the reality. We have to acknowledge the reality to be able to function in this world. I have a particular body. I have a particular mind. I have this vehicle of my body and mind, and I need to better pay attention. मेरे गाड़ी में पेट्रोल लगता है कि डीजल लगता है? पेट्रोल का गाड़ी लेके घूम रहे, डीजल डाल रहे, और फिर जो बर्बाद हो क्या बोलता है, भैया कृष्णा वांट्स दिस. This is nonsense. This is nonsense. We have to understand that we are roaming around in a petrol car. We better put petrol in it. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita there are 5 factors of action. The senses, the performer, the place of action, and endeavor and super soul, like that, right? So we cannot just not do our part, and then because of not doing our part, the negative consequences which come, we see that. See, Bhagavatam बोलता है ना भागवतम दुखालय में. अब क्या करने का बताइए सर? That is bogus. That is nonsense. And such devotees actually bring bad name to the society, bad name to Bhagavatam, bad name to our Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. That our Sampradaya does not talk about how to live in this life, in this world. Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya will not talk about how to live in this world. How is this possible? So anyway, so to create a favorable environment, so the first point is to create a favorable environment, right? And by the way, so please note, when I am saying Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, I am not saying Bhagavatam, I am saying all Shastras, because our Acharyas have always talked about various Shastras. In fact, Srimad Bhagavatam also talks about Ramayana to some extent, is it not? Srimad Bhagavatam also talks about Mahabharata to some extent, but Srimad Bhagavatam's focus is different, and therefore we should read Mahabharata, we should read Ramayana to understand some more details about certain functioning, how do we function in this world. Like as I was telling in one of the earlier sessions, ऐसा नहीं है कि भागवतम केवल भक्ति बताता है और कैसे फंक्शन करना है नहीं बताता है, वो कैसे फंक्शन करना है वो भी बताता है. और ऐसा नहीं है कि रामायण महाभारत केवल फंक्शन कैसे करना है वो बताता है और भगवान के अट्रैक्शन के बारे में कुछ भी नहीं बताता है. ऐसा भी नहीं है, बिकॉज वेदे रामायणे चैव पुराणे भारते तथा आदौ अन्ते च मध्ये च हरि सर्वत्र गीयते. रामायण और महाभारत में भी हरि सर्वत्र गीयते हैं. तो दोनों में दोनों चीजें हैं. देयरफॉर व्हाट इज नीडेड is not Srimad Bhagavatam versus Mahabharata versus Ramayana. That's not the debate. What is needed is a mature understanding of what is being told to us. We should understand them through the light of the Shastras, right? So anyway, coming back. So why do we need to work hard to discharge our duties and responsibilities properly? Why we should not misunderstand these statements of Srimad Bhagavatam that, oh, this world is dukhalayam. What is the impetus for us? What motivates us to do the hard work? Because hard work we must do. Govind Prabhu says that there is no difference between devotees and non-devotees as far as working hard is concerned. We should always remember this. Just because we have become so-called devotees now does not mean now we should relax. Like this we should relax. Whole day we should sit like this. But again, now we have a sword of knowledge. So with the sword of knowledge we can fight like anything. There is a quote of Prabhupada. Quote of Prabhupada says there are 4 kinds of people. The verse says active fool. एक्टिव फूल से बेटर है लेजी फूल. लेजी फूल से बेटर है एक्टिव इंटेलिजेंट, और एक्टिव इंटेलिजेंस से बेटर है लेजी इंटेलिजेंट. बहुत बार डिवोटीज बोलते हैं, मैं एक डिवोटी था वो खाली बैठा रहता था ऐसा. मैं बोलता क्या भाई आप काम धाम नहीं करते हैं कुछ प्रभु जी. तो वो बोलता है मेरे को प्रभु जी देखिए प्रभुपाद ने ऐसा बताया है कि जो सबसे खराब लोग होते हैं वो एक्टिव फूल होते हैं. मतलब फूल है और एक्टिव है, मतलब इट्स अ वेरी डेंजरस पोजीशन. मतलब इट्स लाइक नाइफ इन हैंड ऑफ मैडमैन. उससे बेटर कौन हुआ? लेजी फूल. कम से कम एक जगह बैठा है. फूल है, किसी का भला नहीं करने वाला, पर कम से कम एक जगह बैठा है. उससे बेटर हो गया एक्टिव इंटेलिजेंट. इंटेलिजेंट है और पूरा इधर से उधर भाग रहा है. और उससे बेटर हो गया प्रभुपाद बताते हैं लेजी इंटेलिजेंट. अब प्लीज नोट, जब प्रभुपाद लेजी इंटेलिजेंट बता रहे हैं ना, तो आप ये देखिए प्रभुपाद 22 घंटा काम कर रहे हैं. तो व्हेन प्रभुपाद सेड लेजी इंटेलिजेंट, इट डिड नॉट मीन ऐसा करके बैठने का. व्हेन प्रभुपाद सेड लेजी इंटेलिजेंट, ही मेंट कि वी हैव टू यूज अवर ब्रेन इन सच अ वे दैट वी कैन डू स्मार्ट वर्क. We should do smart work, not that like a fool we are running around here and there. That's what Prabhupada meant. Like Prabhupada said, enthusiasm means endeavoring with intelligence. Enthusiasm does not mean now just jumping up and down like this. Why sir, क्या हो गया प्रभु जी? अरे प्रभु जी बहुत enthusiasm मेरे को, तो ऊपर नीचे jump कर रहे हैं. That's not what is the meaning of enthusiasm. Prabhupada said enthusiasm means endeavoring with intelligence, right? So coming back to this point, so why should we work hard? We should work hard to create a favorable environment, so that we can get necessary peace and happiness for us to function. Now I want to just emphasize this once more. कितना भी कोई एक्सपर्ट सर्जन हो, अगर कोई आदमी मर रहा होगा तो आप एक्सपर्ट सर्जन को बुलाओगे, पेड़ के नीचे बोलोगे इसका ऑपरेशन करके इसको ठीक कर दो, कर पाएगा क्या वो ठीक? Even an expert surgeon cannot do surgery under a tree. He will need an operation theater to do surgery. If Amar Bajaj Prabhu would have been here today, he would have confirmed more authoritatively this point. Right? He is a surgeon. So even an expert surgeon needs an operation theater. He needs the right environment to function. Similarly, grahasthas need a right environment. Brahmacharis need a right environment. Our environment of our occupation has to be right. Environment of our family, our wife and children has to be right. And उसके लिए जो भी necessary है वो करना पड़ेगा. हम ये नहीं बोल सकते यार ये सब तो anyway माया है, ये तो illusory है, ये तो attachment है. नहीं. We have to do that to create a favorable environment so that we can function well. Reason number 1. Reason number 2, to please Krishna. When we do our duties, Krishna becomes pleased. It is not that we are in this situation by chance. Krishna has put us in a particular situation. Krishna has made us in a particular way. And in that situation, Shastras, Guru, Sadhu, Shastra tells us, by these are your duties. And we should do those duties to please Krishna. उस duty को करने के लिए अगर पापड़ बेलना पड़े तो बेलना पड़ेगा. And we have to take that as our purification. It is like it is said that whenever sufferings come to us, because of discharge of our duties, right? Like as grahasthas, as father, as husband, as son, as brother, we have so many duties and responsibilities to perform as student. And in discharge of those duties and responsibilities, certainly we will have to undergo a lot of struggle. Nothing comes easy in this world. Nothing comes. Prabhupada says, what is that? Nahi suptasya singasya mrigam pravishanti. Something like that, right? सोते हुए सिंह के मुंह में मृग नहीं आएगा. In fact, Prabhupada says आएगा वो टॉयलेट करके चला जाएगा उसके मुंह में, right? So nothing comes easy. There has to be struggle. And जितना भी struggle हमको अपने duties और responsibilities के लिए discharge करने के लिए करना है, वो हमको करना पड़ेगा. And we should not take that as misery. We should take that as a means for our own purification. नहीं तो हमारा purification कैसे होगा? AC रूम में बैठ के नरम गद्दा पे सो के, ये सब तो purification तो हुआ ही नहीं, right? So that's why every ashram has a particular plan of purification. So that's what another reason why we should work hard. The fourth reason, or rather it's like a complementary point, that to do these things, to do our duties and responsibilities, to create a favorable environment, to do these things, we may need to use certain aids. For example, we may have to go to a doctor, we may have to go to an astrologer, right? Now, does it mean now we are not, अरे भैया आप किस बात के डिवोटी हो? बीमार हो गए तो भगवान का प्रे करना चाहिए था, आपको 4 माला एक्स्ट्रा चैंटिंग करना चाहिए था, आप तो डॉक्टर के पास चले गए. आपको 3 बार ताली बजाना चाहिए था, पर आपने 3 बार ताली नहीं बजाया, आपने 4 बार हरे कृष्णा भी नहीं बोला, आप तो 1 बार डॉक्टर के पास चले गए डायरेक्ट. आप किस बात के डिवोटी हो? That is a wrong understanding. We all have to understand what is our current situation, what is our current level of consciousness. And just because I am going to a doctor to get my disease cured, it does not make me a lesser devotee, right? Because it's not that a pure devotee does not have to go to a doctor, right? Whatever is needful has to be done, but it has to be used. We don't take shelter of it. There is a great deal of difference between using a medicine and taking shelter of medicine, right? So you can use a doctor, you can use medicine, you can use astrology, you can use this ring, that ring, whatever, based on whatever are the authorized shastras and other fields of study, but we don't take shelter of them. We understand them to be instruments of Krishna. And we understand that whatever is Krishna's will happen through those agents. But ultimately it is Krishna's will. Ultimately it is based on my own law of karma. And therefore, we may use these aids, right? But we don't take shelter of these aids. We take shelter only of Krishna. That's one star mark to understand while we are doing the hard work. And the other star mark to understand while we are doing the hard work is that we should know that ultimately we are not doing it to become happy. We are not doing it to become happy, because there will be so many reasons to become miserable. There will be so many reasons wherein people, I will do everything for somebody, but that somebody will not be able to reciprocate fully with my love or with my service. And therefore, we have to go back to our basics to understand that as far as happiness is concerned, that real happiness, that hankering which our heart, our soul is hankering for since time immemorial, that we have to try to find in Krishna. And we have to try to find in everything around in connection with Krishna. Like for example, once Bhakti Vidyapur Maharaj was telling that when we love children, when a devotee loves his son or daughter, it is basically manifestation of Krishna's love. That is the meaning of Krishna consciousness, right? So when we say that we should love Krishna and we should derive happiness from loving Krishna, it does not mean we should not love our wife, we should not love our children, we should not love our parents. That's not what the point is. The point is, loving Krishna means we should love everybody else in connection with Krishna. So loving Krishna is not against or opposite loving anybody else. On the other hand, if we love everybody else, but if we don't love Krishna, then we will be, defeating the purpose, right? So therefore, these things have to be very, very properly understood. Okay, so I think we can finish this. So we have finished the P part of it, pure, right? So if you remember, we were discussing this verse 12.13.18, and the first line talked about how Srimad Bhagavatam is pure. So I hope this is very, very clear to all of us that when we say Srimad Bhagavatam is pure, it is in the sense that it does not give you a diluted or a compromised understanding of this world just to make you feel good. No, it gives a very, very pure, realistic understanding. At the same time, does it mean that we misinterpret that and, come to those 3-4 different wrong conclusions which we talked about? No, we are not supposed to come to those wrong conclusions. Okay. Now, second characteristic of Srimad Bhagavatam. Yes, it is pure. It gives you the ultimate reality of this world, and the fact that, ultimately, no matter how hard you try, ultimately no material solutions are going to solve your problems. Ultimately, you have to take shelter of Krishna consciousness, right? But then, what is the second characteristic of Srimad Bhagavatam? What is the understanding of this reality, right? Yes, this is a reality, but how do you acknowledge this reality and function in this world? So, Yasmin Param Hamsyam Ekam Amalam Jnanam Param Giyate. It is most dear to the Vaishnavas because it describes the pure and supreme knowledge of the Paramhamsas, right? So, Srimad Bhagavatam is the understanding of the Paramhamsas. Yes, it talks about the world being a place of suffering. It talks about ultimately no happiness being there in this world. But what is the understanding of the Paramhamsas? That is what is Srimad Bhagavatam, right? So who is a Hamsa? Hamsa is that bird who can actually separate milk and water, correct? So similarly, Paramhamsas are those people, those pure devotees of the Lord who can get the milk from water. So milk is compared to Krishna and water is compared to the material world. Those people who are expert to not reject the world, but to get the essence out of this world, to use the world to meditate on Krishna, right? So that is a Paramhamsa. Paramhamsa does not reject the world. He does not reject this world and go and lives in space. He uses this world as a tool to meditate on Krishna more and more. He uses this world as a tool to remember Krishna, and therefore he always sticks to the essence. He remains like the lotus in the water, right? So the moment you talk of the lotus inside water, which is uncontaminated by the kichad around, you're talking about this Paramahamsa, that, how you are in this world, and yet you are not rejecting the world, but you are using the world to improve your meditation on Krishna, to increase your remembrance of Krishna. So it is like accepting the world is one extreme, rejecting the world is another extreme, and using it as a tool to meditate on Krishna is something else, which is what the Paramahamsa understanding is. And that is the understanding of Srimad Bhagavatam. So neither demonize the world, nor romanticize the world, but utilize the world. And we have already seen in the previous slide that what do we mean by utilizing the world, those 3-4 things, right? And therefore, if you see, Srimad Bhagavatam talks about the different visions of the world. In second canto, Srimad Bhagavatam talks about the universal form, right? There is a reason to it. The reason is because Srimad Bhagavatam wants us to see Krishna in this world, right? Srimad Bhagavatam wants us to see things in relationship with Krishna. That is Krishna consciousness, right? Like Prabhupada in his famous lecture, he said that this mic in which I am speaking, right, is this mic material or spiritual? It depends on whether you are able to see its connection with Krishna or not, whether you are able to use it in service of Krishna or not. And depending on that, it will be either material or spiritual. Similarly, Srimad Bhagavatam is giving a different understanding of the universe around so that we can use it to improve our meditation on Krishna, to improve our remembrance of Krishna. So, in second canto, Srimad Bhagavatam talks about the universal form. Now, there is a reason why it is being done. Because the moment we hear of somebody great, the moment we say God is great, our immediate default tendency is to imagine something big, something grand, right? The moment we say great, we equate great with big or grand, right? Now, as Srimad Bhagavatam says that the mountains are my legs, Krishna's legs, the sun and the moon are Krishna's eyes, right? Then it helps us to associate those big things, and through those big things, remember the biggest, remember the greatest, right? So that's how the universal form helps in second canto. In third canto, Srimad Bhagavatam talks about the world from a Sankhya Yoga perspective. Right? Sankhya Yoga perspective means, like, let's say you are analyzing, it's like analyzing, in fact over analyzing, right? It's like halwa, right? So when you have got a halwa, you are seeing halwa not as a halwa, but you are seeing halwa as suji and a gas stove and a burner and gas and some ingredients in it, right? You are analyzing, you are deconstructing it into various constituents. Now when you do that, how does it help you? it helps you first of all to not get carried away by halwa. So you don't romanticize the world, right? You don't get carried away by the world. You don't think this world to be everything because of the so much glamour of this world, or because of so many temptations in this world. We do not think this world to be everything. When you decompose, when you deconstruct, when you analyze the world into its constituents, you realize that, oh, this is nothing fancy, and ultimately everything is boiling down to earth, water, fire, air, ether. But how now Krishna comes in picture? Because this earth, water, air, fire, ether is coming from where? It is coming from Krishna, right? So two things: one, to take away the glamour by decomposing things, and second, to connect Krishna by saying that these things of which it was made is actually coming from Krishna. So that is how again it improves our remembrance of Krishna, or our meditation on Krishna. And in 5th canto, Srimad Bhagavatam talks about the cosmological understanding of this world, the various planetary systems, and this lok, that lok, who is where, and all that, right? So there again, the emphasis is not from an astrology perspective. It's not from ye grah karoge, ye grah, ye nakshatra. It's not from that perspective. The emphasis is from the perspective of that how there are living entities all over the creation, and how there is a worship and devotion prevailing all over. Different people are worshipping Krishna in different ways, and they are devoted to Krishna in different ways, rendering different kinds of services. So that's the focus again, so that we can look at the sun in the sky, and we can see sun as sun god who is serving Krishna by carrying out his duty, you see, like that. So that's how Srimad Bhagavatam is giving us different vision of the world. But the point here is what? In all these three descriptions, whether it be universal form, or it be Sankhya Yoga, or it be cosmos, if you see the beginning and the last verses of these sections, you will see that how the conclusion is the same. The conclusion is to increase our meditation on Krishna. That is the purpose why Srimad Bhagavatam is talking about it, right? And again, how do we utilize this world? By doing our responsibilities in Varna and Ashram for our purification, for realizations, right? As we discussed in the previous slide as well. And one very, very important thing, we don't get realization just by sitting on chair or just by reading books. We don't get realization. Only when we act, only when we have a field of action, and we go through certain experiences, and we are always under the direction of Guru Sadhu Shastra, then we get realization. Just experience itself is not enough, because there are so many people in this material world, there are so many materialists who are going through a lot of experiences, but are they getting some realizations in life? No. Are they getting closer to Krishna? No. Why? Because experience alone is not enough. Experience under the light of Guru Sadhu Shastra, this becomes a deadly combination, and this combination makes us more mature, makes us more ripened devotee, makes us more realized devotee, with some realizations, with some wisdom in our heart, practical wisdom. Like we all should always try to become that ripe mango. We should not be the raw mango. रॉ मैंगो मतलब वो जो कच्चा आम पेड़ पे लगा रहता है वो रॉ मैंगो होता है, लेकिन अगर वो पेड़ पे लगा रहेगा, अगर वो कनेक्टेड रहेगा, स्पिरिचुअल लाइफ में सबसे बड़ी चीज होती है टू रिमेन कनेक्टेड. लाइक इफ यू रिमेंबर वंस वी वर डिस्कसिंग दैट, आई थिंक व्हाट्सएप में भी एक बार हम लोगों ने शेयर किया था ये, कि वी शुड बी व्हाट इज दैट, वी शुड बी फिजिकली हेल्दी, वी शुड बी मेंटली अलर्ट, we should be socially respectable, we should be economically sound, and we should be spiritually connected. So for spiritual life, connection is that one very, very important thing. Connection with our fellow devotees, connection with equals, seniors and juniors. All these three connection is very important. अगर वो कच्चा आम पेड़ से टूट जाएगा तो वो पक नहीं पाएगा, लेकिन अगर वो पेड़ पर लगा रहेगा, कनेक्टेड रहेगा, तो धीरे धीरे पक जाएगा वो. तो इसके लिए when we are connected with Guru Sadhu Shastra, and when we are going through the experiences of life, whatever, if I am a brahmachari, I am going through the experiences of brahmachari ashram. If I am a grahastha, I am going through the experiences of grahastha ashram. Whatever experiences I am going through, when I am connected to Guru Sadhu Shastra, that will make me a better devotee. That will make me a ripe mango. That will bring out purification in me. So that was the second point. What's the time? 6:35. Okay, I have 10 more minutes. So let's do the third thing as well. In fact, if I can take 15 more minutes, I will be able to finish both renunciation and ecstasy, because they are like 10 minutes. Do I have permission of all of you to just finish this topic?
Yes,
Hare Krishna. Yeah, if I can go on till if I can go on for another 15-20 minutes, I will be able to finish the entire topic. Otherwise, unnecessarily we'll have to do a part 2 next time. I think let me continue for another 15-20 minutes and finish this topic. Okay? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So now, we talked about how Srimad Bhagavatam is pure. We talked about what is the right understanding to not reject the world, but to use the world as a tool to meditate on Krishna. And now we are seeing that how by this pure understanding, what happens? We get renunciation and ecstasy. Okay, so that's the third line of the shloka. Tatra jnana viraga bhakti sahitam naishkarmyam aviskritam. This Bhagavatam reveals means for becoming free from material work together with the processes of transcendental knowledge, renunciation and devotion. That's the fruit of Bhagavatam, right? It actually empowers us by renunciation. It empowers us by renunciation and ecstasy. So, when we talk of Vairagya, when we talk of Yukta Vairagya, like we talked about not rejecting the world, right? We talked about using the world in service of Krishna, using the world as a tool to meditate on Krishna. So, there we have to be very, very careful about our adhikar. Because we cannot talk of Yukta Vairagya unless we have some Vairagya. Like sometimes, some grahasthas say that, Prabhuji, we want to have a big bungalow and we want to have a big marble altar and we want to purchase a big car so that we can use them in service of Krishna. And the reality is currently this guy is struggling for some 10,000 rupees per month, right? And now to get that, now he is, making his life hell, right? That is not Yukta Vairagya. Yukta Vairagya means whatever you already have by the mercy of Krishna, you use it in service of Krishna. Not that you endeavor, you do prayas to get something in the name of using it in the service of Krishna, right? That's not what Yukta Vairagya means. And secondly, in Yukta Vairagya, the Vairagya concept is also equally important, right? That before we can, as I have written here in this slide, before we can engage the world in Krishna's service, we have to have some attachment to Krishna and detachment from this world, right? Unless we already have some attachment to Krishna and some detachment from this world, we will not be able to engage this world in Krishna's service. And without that, what will happen is, the world will engage us in Maya service. We have to be very, very careful. We don't want to be engaged by the world in Maya service. In the name, so निकला था, जैसा एक बहुत पहले, I remember there was one Hindi movie, क्या है वो, चला मुरारी हीरो बनने या something like that, right? तो निकला था ये डिवोटी, पूरे वर्ल्ड को कृष्णा के सेवा में लगाने के लिए, लेकिन क्योंकि इसका खुद का रियलाइजेशन और अधिकार उतना नहीं था, क्योंकि इसका खुद का अटैचमेंट टू कृष्णा उतना मच्योर नहीं था, क्योंकि इसका खुद का डिटैचमेंट फ्रॉम द वर्ल्ड उतना मच्योर नहीं था, तो बेचारा निकला था पूरे वर्ल्ड को कृष्णा की सेवा में लगाने के लिए, लेकिन पूरे वर्ल्ड ने इसको माया की सेवा में लगा दिया. So that should not happen with us, right? So, and then again, one thing we have to be very careful about. We always say that Bhagavatam talks about detachment, Bhagavatam talks about detachment. अरे ऐसा नहीं है भैया, क्योंकि अगर ऐसा हो, I mean yes, Bhagavatam talks about detachment, but we have to be careful about not misunderstanding detachment. Like आप देखो, स्वयंभुवा मनु अपना आराम से अपना फैमिली लाइफ एंजॉय कर रहे थे. युधिष्ठिर महाराज, सारे पांडवा, सारे राजा, जितने भी, इनफैक्ट भागवतम में तो जितने राजा हैं उतना तो मैंने आज तक देखा नहीं अपने लाइफ में. तो दे आर सो मेनी राजा, ऑल द आइडियल गृहस्थास, there are more grahasthas in Bhagavatam than brahmacharis or sannyasis. So the point is that what is the real meaning of detachment? Detachment does not mean aversion to commitment. हमारा tendency क्या है in our current generation? We do not take responsibility, we do not take commitment, and then as soon as somebody gives a latch of detachment, we latch on to that and we feed our nature of irresponsibility. We use it as an excuse to be irresponsible. We use it as an excuse to not do our duties. And therefore it is said that when that overemphasis on detachment in the culture wherein there is no commitment only leads to irresponsibility. Overemphasis on detachment in the culture wherein there is no aspect of commitment, or responsibility, only leads to irresponsibility, because we get a very nice excuse now. I am not doing this, why? And then sometimes devotee also glorify. प्रभु जी, इसने तो अपना जॉब को बर्बाद करके ये सेवा कर रहा है, प्रभु जी देखिए कितना बड़ा अच्छा से, like that. Then so sometimes we get wrongly glorified also like that, many times, but then we should never equate material frustration or negligence of our duties, to equate with spiritual advancement, because our mind will latch on to that. Mind is very, very eager to always look for a loophole. Mind is very, very eager to always look for an excuse. Mind से हमको बच के रहना है, बस दुनिया में और किसी से बच के नहीं. And now this is a very, very, very important point. कि जो adversities आता है हमारे life में, we are talking about how this renunciation will come, right? How Srimad Bhagavatam empowers us to develop renunciation, right? Srimad Bhagavatam gives such a wonderful understanding, pure understanding for renunciation. How that happens? When adversities come in our life, two things may happen. Either adversities can lead to frustration or adversities can lead to renunciation. They should lead to renunciation, they should not lead to frustration. What is frustration? Frustration means inability to enjoy. And what is renunciation? Renunciation means I am not interested in enjoyment. That's what renunciation means. right? Frustration means inability to enjoy, and renunciation means I'm not interested in enjoyment, right? So right understanding which Srimad Bhagavatam gives is that when adversity is coming in our life, we should develop renunciation. We should not develop frustration. And this is very, very relevant to this discussion of, as far as now, since we are talking about adversities, right? If you have to present Srimad Bhagavatam to a common man, typically everybody has this common question. Everybody. The moment anybody comes to any spiritual circle, I'm sure all of you preachers out there, I'm sure all of you would have this experience that any time there is a spiritual program wherein some question answers are being discussed, this question always comes up. Why bad things happen to good people, right? And Srimad Bhagavatam very much addresses this question, but Srimad Bhagavatam takes a different angle to address this question, right? What is one standard answer to this question? That is as per law of karma. Bad things happen to good people because in some life they would have done some bad things, right? So the standard answer is law of karma. But look at what twist Srimad Bhagavatam gives to it. Srimad Bhagavatam does not emphasize the karma aspect of it. Srimad Bhagavatam rather emphasizes that when adversities come, how good people react. That is what Srimad Bhagavatam emphasizes, right? Srimad Bhagavatam does not say, "Kya adversity aa gaya, bechare kaya bura kar ye tha wo tha." Srimad Bhagavatam talks about, okay, there are people much better than you, and there are people. Please read Srimad Bhagavatam, and we will understand that there are people much better than us. Please read Srimad Bhagavatam, and we will realize that there are sufferings much more than us. And then also, what do these people did? How do devotees react when sufferings come to them? Srimad Bhagavatam says, in fact, Parikshit Maharaj himself, right, at the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam itself, such a wonderful king, such a virtuous ruler, Parikshit, somebody who has been personally protected by Krishna, going through such adverse situation in life. The whole beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam is like that, right? And what is the focus? The focus is not to become frustrated, or the focus is not to do prayas to counteract that, but the focus is actually to transcend it and to develop more and more renunciation, right? So Bhagavatam says that you are not alone and your suffering is nothing as compared to others. And we see so many examples in Srimad Bhagavatam. We see example of Parikshit Maharaj being cursed. We see example of Dhruva being chastised by Suruchi when Dhruva was wanting to sit on Uttanpa's lap, right? Suruchi chastised him, said that you get lost. A 5-year-old boy, imagine if you stop a 5-year-old boy from sitting on the lap of his father, Dhruva's face actually became red at that time. Chitraketu, as we all saw, Chitraketu, later he got cursed by Parvati. He got actually misunderstood. He was actually in his mind praising Lord Shiva. Though he externally laughed, but his intent was not to offend. But Parvati took it very, very seriously, right? And again, what did Chitraketu do? Chitraketu accepted it as a divine arrangement. Ambarish Maharaj, Durvasa Muni cursed him. Gajendra was having a cool time, and life all of a sudden became hot for him. He was having a very, very cool time, and life became very hot for him. And Krishna himself, even before he was born, there were people ready to kill him. Imagine imagine a situation wherein you are being born and there are 10, 12 people who are ready to kill you. They are waiting for your birth so that they can kill you. That's what Kamsa was ready for, for Krishna. Right? So Srimad Bhagavatam is actually full of adversities, and the focus is not on law of karma, but the focus is on refining our consciousness. That, okay, bad things happen to good people, fine, there are many reasons, this, that, blah, blah, kal and karma and all that. But what is more important to understand is, what do good people do when adversities come to them? Do good people take sword and everything and then, pura ekdam, gali dena chalu kar dete hai ki kuch aur bhi karte hai, right? Now again, as I said, there is a lot of scope. Knowledge को sword ऐसे ही नहीं बोल दिया है फालतू में. Knowledge को sword बोला है सोच समझ के बोला है, क्योंकि sword का हमेशा दो edge होता है. It is said that knowledge is a double-edged sword, right? Double-edged sword होता है तो बहुत बार हम अपना हाथ भी काट लेते हैं, बहुत बार सामने वाले को काट देते हैं knowledge से. Like as we were discussing once on our, I think, WhatsApp group or somewhere, that we have been given the sword of knowledge not to kill each other with that sword of knowledge, but to cut the ignorance, not to cut each other with the sword of knowledge, right? पता चला husband devotee है, wife devotee है, marriage board से शादी किया, दोनों एक sword के साथ आ गया. दोनों एक sword of knowledge के साथ आ गया, अभी काट चालू है, महाभारत, like that. So that's not the meaning of sword of knowledge. And the other problem with sword of knowledge is that we can wrongly understand the instructions of Shastras. For example, when I said कि जब ये लोग हैं, जब adversity आया so they actually took it as Krishna's grace. इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि अभी कल को आके कोई आपके घर में चोरी कर जाए, आप हाथ जोड़ के बोलोगे I am taking it as Krishna's grace. No, that's not the point. Sometimes extreme examples are given in the Shastras to tell us that what should be actual understanding, inner understanding. At the same time, needful has to be done, and therefore this line becomes very important. So sometimes we have to find specific cause to do the needful and improve our situation. मान लो मेरे को मेरे जॉब में बिल्कुल भी आनंद नहीं आ रहा है, मतलब आनंद तो छोड़ो, मतलब मिजरेबल हो गया मेरा लाइफ. इसका मतलब हमको देखना पड़ेगा ना क्या गड़बड़ है. शायद मेरे को आई नीड टू अपग्रेड माई स्किल्स, I need to understand something because I am not good at something and therefore I am not finding I am not comfortable in my job, or probably I am at the wrong place and I need to switch my job. I mean, sometimes we have to try to find a specific cause so that we can do the needful and improve our situation. We cannot be ignorant saying that see anyway this world is dukhalayam ashashvatam, anyway यहाँ जाओ वहाँ जाओ, अल्टीमेटली माया ही है, अल्टीमेटली इल्यूजन ही है, अल्टीमेटली सफरिंग ही है, तो वहां सफर करूं या यहाँ सफर करूं क्या फर्क पड़ता है. नो, we have already seen that we have to do hard work to make our situation favorable. And also I forgot to write one more point in that. Let me write one more point there. One more reason was to set an example, right? Another reason is to set an example. Okay, so no, we cannot do like that. So we have to do the needful. So we have to find a specific cause and we have to do the needful to improve our situation. Now, at the same time, there may be situations wherein we cannot find a specific cause and we have to accept the generic cause. कि अच्छा है, होनी थी, होना था, that was my destiny. Yeah, you know what to do. I mean, everybody is best, but yet this happened. That means this was destiny, this was Dev, or this is just the nature of this world. Like Yudhishthir Maharaj, पूरा महाभारत हो जाने के बाद सबसे उदास, सबसे परेशान है. क्यों? क्योंकि उनको लगता है कि उनके वजह से ये सब कुछ हुआ. तो उनको कितना समझाना पड़ा, बोलना पड़ा, अरे भैया आपके वजह से नहीं हुआ है, ये जस्ट बिकॉज ऑफ द इन्फ्लुएंस ऑफ टाइम हुआ है, आपकी वजह से नहीं हुआ है और आपके पास कर्मों की वजह से भी नहीं हुआ है. दिस इज जस्ट बिकॉज दिस इज द वे द वर्ल्ड इज. निखिल प्रभु आप म्यूट कर लीजिए, बस 5 मिनट और. निखिल प्रभु बस 5 मिनट और. So sometimes we have to try to identify the specific cause and we have to address it to improve our situation. But at other times we have to accept the generic cause that okay, this is the nature of this world. What can you do? This is how this world is, and accept it and live with it. And this creates renunciation in us. This understanding creates renunciation in us. And I came across, I think several years back, I came across a very, very nice prayer, and I would like to recite that prayer. That prayer says, "Oh Lord," and this is the prayer which we all should remember. It is not some Sanskrit prayer or something. It is in simple English. But still, if this English prayer also, if we can offer to Krishna every day, our life will actually become very simple. This prayer is, "Oh Lord, give me the courage to change those things which I can. Give me the courage to tolerate those things which I can't, and give me the intelligence to discriminate between the two." Right? So this is very, very important, because the moment I have written these 2 points here, that sometimes we have to find the specific cause and we have to do the needful to improve the situation, and at other times we just have to accept the generic cause that this world is like that, or this is the nature of time, Kal, or this was my destiny, and we have to accept it and we have to live with it, right? How do we know in which situation what are we supposed to do? Otherwise it may be going in the direction of prayas. मतलब दोनों wrong हो सकता है. जहाँ कुछ करना था वहाँ कुछ नहीं कर रहे, ये सोच के कि भाई करके क्या होगा, और जहाँ नहीं करना है वहाँ पे किए जा रहे और प्रयास के डायरेक्शन में जा रहे हैं. Right? So therefore, by the strength of Guru Sadhu Shastra, by the strength of our own practice of Krishna consciousness, by sincerely, with faith and with attention, by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, by our sadhana, as well as by our swadhyaya, as well as by our rendering of service, by the mercy of superiors, gradually we come to right understanding of how much is too much and how less is too less. And finally, the fourth characteristic of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is highlighted in the 4th line of this verse, is that this pure understanding leads to renunciation as well as ecstasy. So please understand that so far our discussion has been about sufferings and renunciation and all that, and that sounds very gloomy and dry. It sounds very gloomy and dry. But that is not the core message of Bhagavatam. The core message of Bhagavatam is that of hope and joy. The core message of Bhagavatam is actually not sufferings and renunciation and all that. That's there. But the real message, as we saw, friend, master and lover, right? The core message of Bhagavatam is that of hope and joy. right? And that's why the fourth line of this verse, it says, Tat Shrivansu Pathan Vicharana Paro Bhaktya Vimuchena Naraha. Anyone who seriously tries to understand Srimad Bhagavatam, who properly hears and chants it with devotion, becomes completely liberated. So it is said that greater than the world's power to hurt is Krishna's power to heal. Srimad Bhagavatam introduces to us such a Krishna, such God. Srimad Bhagavatam introduces to us such God who we just can't help but get captivated by. No other scripture introduces God in such a sweet way as what Srimad Bhagavatam introduces. And then no other scripture gives such a faith in Krishna, wherein we can have understanding of this statement that greater than world's power to hurt is Krishna's power to heal. So Srimad Bhagavatam reveals vision of God who is extremely loving and lovable, as I was telling in the beginning as well, right? So, I mean, as we all know that in Srimad Bhagavatam, first, the various, first universal form. So just like there are different visions of the world presented in Srimad Bhagavatam, similarly there are different visions of Supreme Personality of Godhead presented in Srimad Bhagavatam. First vision of Supreme Personality of Godhead is that of the universal form. Second vision is that of the various incarnations, Ye Avatar, Wo Avatar, Vara Avatar, Matsya Avatar, and then Narsingh Avatar. And then finally it comes to Rama. That means the degree of intimacy is increasing. The degree of reciprocation of love is increasing. And then Srimad Bhagavatam reveals in its full glory the sweetest and the greatest personality, Shri Krishna, right? So much so that his godhood is, his sweetness overpowers his godhood. The pure devotee's love for Krishna, Yashoda's love for Krishna overpowers the fact that Krishna is God. In fact, once Amarendra Prabhu in his lecture, he was telling that in Vrindavan, Krishna is trying his best to make people understand he is God, but nobody is ready to understand he is God. Nobody is ready to willing to listen that he is God, So that is the sweetness, right? So we forget Krishna because of lack of faith. But Brajvasis, they forget Krishna because of excess of love. Krishna is God, right? We forget Krishna is God. We don't know Krishna is God because of lack of faith. Brajvasis don't know Krishna is God because of excess of love. Srimad Bhagavatam gives us access to that sweetest God who is more a lover than a God. Right? That's the point. And that brings ecstasy because that gives us access to the most fulfilling relationship in life. And therefore, in the same prayers which Sanatana Goswami writes, which we discussed in the beginning also, he says, Paramananda Pathaya Prema Varshi Aksharayate Sarvada Sarva Sevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namostume. He says, O Srimad Bhagavatam, Paramananda Pathaya. Isko पढ़ के क्या होता है? By reading you one attains transcendental bliss, ecstasy. Prema Varsha Aksharayate. Your syllables rain pure love of God upon the reader. मतलब अभी रेनी सीजन आने वाला है, लव ऑफ गॉड का शावर होता है जब आप एक एक अक्षर पढ़ते हो श्रीमद् भागवतम का. सर्वदा सर्व सेव्याया, सर्वदा at all times, सर्व everybody सेव्याया is supposed to serve Srimad Bhagavatam. Shri Krishnaya Namostume. Let me offer, and he is Krishna himself. Srimad Bhagavatam is Krishna himself. Namostume. Let me offer my obeisances to Srimad Bhagavatam. Sanatana Goswami is telling like that. And finally, just before I end, in just adding one more thing in this ecstasy wala point, I would like to say that how devotion is equal to submission plus affection. We have touched upon this theme several times about Krishna's greatness and Krishna's sweetness. So when we know about Krishna's greatness more and more, that brings submission in us. And when we know about Krishna's sweetness more and more, that brings affection in us, right? And devotion is actually equal to submission plus affection both. And Srimad Bhagavatam is full of Krishna's greatness also and Krishna's sweetness also. It exposes very, very unique sweetness of Krishna as a vulnerable child, right? Now here there is a very, very interesting point. How vulnerability can add to sweetness in relationship. Many a times we pose ourselves to be somebody strong. We pose ourselves to be somebody great. This is the last slide, just for the sake of information. So many a times we pose ourselves to be somebody great. We pose ourselves to be somebody very strong. And because of that, sometimes whatever inner struggles we are going through, because we are not Superman ultimately, we are not Krishna ultimately, so each one of us, we are fallible. We have a lot of limitations, we have a lot of incapabilities. But when we have to show to the world that we are perfect, or we are superhero, we are Mr. Fix-It, we can solve every problem, that actually becomes very, very burdensome. So it is said that heaviest burden is not what we carry on the back, but what we carry on the face. The mask which we wear. the identity which we try to show to the whole world, right? On the other hand, if we have somebody who we can reveal our heart to, if we have somebody who we can share our weaknesses with, if we have somebody who we can share our inner struggles with, wherein we don't have to worry about being a Superman, अरे तुम तो सबका प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व करते थे, तुम्हारा भी ये प्रॉब्लम है, अरे not like that. We are not worried about our reputation as superhero. Somebody with whom we can share our weaknesses, somebody with whom we can share our limitations, somebody with whom we can expose our vulnerability. That actually enhances the sweetness of relationship, is it not? When you lower the mask, so the sweetness of relationship is not only determined by the amount of time you spend with that person, it is also determined by how much you lower your mask, how much you are willing to expose yourself from within, right? So please note this point, very, very important. So that the sweetness of a relationship is not only characterized by how much time you spend with the person, but it is also characterized by how much you are ready to lower your mask and reveal your inner weaknesses, to the person. Or in the other words, how much you are ready to expose your vulnerability. And Srimad Bhagavatam, when Srimad Bhagavatam presents Krishna as a vulnerable child, right? And that is like the epitome of sweetness, wherein Yashoda Maya is running behind Krishna with a chadi and Krishna is crying tears. So basically Srimad Bhagavatam is, showing us Krishna without any mask, right? Of course, in case of Krishna, he does not have that, there is no mask actually in case of Krishna, and Krishna is actually not vulnerable. So in case of Krishna is a ulta. Krishna actually puts on a mask. Krishna puts on a mask to show as if he is being afraid, right? That is the effect of Yoga Maya. But whatever it is, ultimately it is increasing the sweetness, and that sweetness, enhances our devotional ecstasy. It empowers us. So this is the last concluding line, that how Srimad Bhagavatam empowers us through detachment and ecstasy. But then the fact that Krishna is there, which is such a wonderful, loving and lovable God who is waiting for us, at the end of this journey, is a really, really assuring thing, and it gives us great joy. And therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam empowers us through detachment and ecstasy. So that's it. We have come to the end of it. Before we open the forum for discussions and questions, let me very, very quickly just quickly recap what all we discussed. So first we talked about how Srimad Bhagavatam is a very, very special scripture among all the Vedas and among all the Puranas, right? So that's what we discussed. And then we saw, so all this point we discussed in that connection, how Srimad Bhagavatam is very, very special. Then we saw that how there are 4 characteristics of Srimad Bhagavatam which actually make it very, very special. What are those 4 characteristics? First is that how Srimad Bhagavatam is pure, right? When I said Srimad Bhagavatam is pure, it means it does not give you a compromised understanding or a painted understanding of life or world. It gives you a very, very realistic picture of life and world, right? And then we also talked about that how hearing this realistic picture, many times devotees may come to wrong conclusions. Wrong conclusions about what? Wrong conclusions about not doing their duties properly, misapplying that knowledge, or wrong conclusion about Bhagavatam, that Bhagavatam to इसी के ही लिए है, Bhagavatam में तो यही सब है, नहीं Bhagavatam में और भी कुछ है, right? So then we talked about how Prahlad Maharaj summarizes the reality of this world and all that, and then we saw the second characteristic about understanding. Okay, so the world is of suffering, right? But what is the understanding of the Paramhamsas? The understanding of Paramhamsas is that we are neither supposed to get completely preoccupied by the world, nor we are supposed to reject the world, but we are supposed to use the world as a tool to meditate on Krishna. And we are supposed to enhance our journey of spiritual life by doing action in this world, by performing whatever we have to do in this world. Then we saw that how the third characteristic is Srimad Bhagavatam is a pure understanding which brings about renunciation, right? And then in that we saw that how Vairagya is very, very important, and the wrong understanding of Vairagya, it's not that becoming irresponsible, that's not Vairagya. And we saw that how when adversities come in our life, they should not lead to frustration, but they should lead to renunciation. And we should know that again, it should not be like a premature renunciation, like we say premature Paramhamsa, right? We should know when to identify the cause and when to do the needful to adjust the situation, when to endeavor to improve the condition, when to understand it to be Krishna's arrangement, and things like that. And then finally we saw that this pure understanding for renunciation will also lead to ecstasy, because Srimad Bhagavatam gives us such an understanding of God which is the sweetest understanding, and which is the sweetest revelation of Krishna as Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.